Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.
Photography to me is a way that you can convey different messages to different people in different parts of the world. It can bring joy and happiness. It can also bring sadness. It can capture moments that are special in so many different ways to different people. I think it's a fantastic tool for education, and definitely plays a big part in my work with Animals Asia and also in my personal life as well. I think definitely capturing those special moments that you might have in your life or something that you see. And in particular, as well, again, with my work, is just nature, what I'm seeing around where I live, what we see across Asia in regards to animals, their care, their environments, the issues that they experience. And so I think being able to use a medium that captures those moments and then having that memory to explain what might be happening with different animals that we might see or different situations that they experience. So I find it can be a really powerful tool in many different ways, both positive and negative. But it depends on your messaging and what you're trying to convey, and how you explain the image that you might have taken or that you might be looking at, and what you aim to do with that image or what you aim to achieve from showing that image or explaining it. So I think, yeah, it's capturing and immortalizing a moment in time for whatever your reason might be, and being able to hold on to that for forever. Their photographs are timeless and can transcend generations and boundaries and different things that we might come across in our lives. So I think, yeah, as a tool, it's a very powerful tool, photography. And I think I'm no professional photographer myself, but I do love taking nature photography around where I live, and also of different animals that I might see.
That's great. Karina O'Carroll, Kaz, I call you Kaz, but Karina O'Carroll, thank you for joining. This is one of those weird moments where we live, I couldn't throw a stone as far as where your house is, but I could walk there in 10 minutes.
Probably, or pass me on your bike as you regularly do.
Right. So thank you for joining me on the podcast, and it's a pleasure. It's an honor. I see you very often walking on the road wearing a those vests,
Yes.
the security vests with the reflective whatever, stopping traffic, preventing people from going fast in the country park where we live because you're shepherding various feral cows. A lot of people are like, feral cows, what does that even mean? And it's like, well, we live in a place where there are cows and nobody owns them. They're just like, some places have feral dogs and feral cats, and we have these amazing, beautiful, such incredible feral cows. So great to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, so that's a small portion of the work, I suppose you could call it, but I don't see it like that. That I do in my spare time. I help to co-found an organization in Sai Kung, where we live, called Sai Kung Buffalo Watch, and we started in 2009, and it was mainly to try and sort of start a policy or start some sort of conversation with the government in regards to their management of these beautiful sentient roaming animals, as you said, that I'm often trying to corral and move away from the dangerous roads that we have. So yes, I'm often running around our local roads in a safety reflective vest, doing my best to keep them safe. So
You and some other people. It's not just you as the crazy lady on the street. Like there are other people with
the
you.
crazy cow lady occasionally. No, there's a whole team of wonderful community based volunteers, residents who live in different villages in the area who basically keep an eye out. And, that's the best thing that we can do for these lovely animals is keep an eye out. If they're in danger on the roads, people report to our organization, and whoever's free and available goes out and tries to help, obviously move them to safer areas.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in Sai Kung since the 60s, so, it's not something new. I think it's a matter of the development that's happened in Sai Kung. Obviously, we've built roadways and we've built villages on land that they previously would have for grazing. So
Mm-hmm.
they're moving around a lot more to get from A to B, basically. And unfortunately, that often takes them across main roads.
Mm-hmm.
So that tends to be, where we come in, and that just prevents what was happening in the past in 2009. And one of the reasons why we started is that when there were nuisance complaints regarding the cattle, the government would come to Sai Kung and round them up, and basically they would disappear. And we suspect it was to the slaughterhouse, unfortunately. So,
Mm-hmm.
management principle, we obviously disagree with that very strongly when we found out what was going on, and we engaged with the government and eventually managed to say that as a community, we would try and obviously manage the situation a little bit better that would minimize the need to remove these lovely animals from Sai Kung, and
Yeah.
to a fate that we didn't agree with. And so basically how the organization was started. We're just a volunteer group, but we have a lot of caring community members in various different villages all over Sai Kung who do keep an eye out for, as they say, their cows.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Group and herd of cows has their sort of territory in their areas that they walk around daily, and their routines as well.
If it's okay with you, I'd like to include, we're going to get to your photographs, but I'd like to include one photo that I just made, a couple of days ago of one of the cows. We call him Mr. 502, and he's just around our village. And the photo ended up being really nice. So I just put out my hand. He came to smell my skin because he was right outside my door. And I just happened to make the photograph at that moment. And the image turned out so nice. And he just looks like the friendliest dog. And he has such a great, gentle personality. So yeah.
They do. They're very sentient. They're very curious. They have, emotions and feelings just like we do. They have bonds with their herd mates, very strong attachment to their family members. So, yeah, when you spend some time just observing them and watching them, you can start to see patterns of behavior. And as I said, the routines that they have,
Mm-hmm.
weather dependent behaviors that affect them. So today, for example, it's raining here. They'll all be seeking shelter in higher areas. They don't like to generally get wet. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's again another lovely reason why a lot of them are in Sai Kung, I think, is because we've got plenty of foliage where they can naturally seek shelter and use the different natural things that we have to protect themselves. So they've
Mm-hmm.
different areas, places they like to go, things they like to do. And we just basically try and manage mainly the aspect of them being on the road, or if there unfortunately is any nuisance complaints in villages, we try to go and obviously discuss what the problem is and see if there's something that we can do.
That'd be pretty dickish, though. If you live in Sai Kung and you get like, hey, there's a cow in my, you get kind of all uptight about it. It's like, come on, man. Like, that's part of what makes this place amazing.
Tends to be the output, shall we say, from the cattle that sometimes causes.
You can say shit. That's good. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
The cow pats. You tend to get a couple of complaints. Actually, just in my village the other day, we had quite a few 21 cows who'd come for a visit, and the amount of shit that was left behind was causing some issues. So out I was with my rake,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and we just, put it into the bushes. And when we explain sort of like things like, the cow pats can be absolutely fantastic for your gardens and growing vegetables and things like that, giving
Mm-hmm.
it actually tends to sort of minimize then the complaints, I suppose, that we
Sure.
around it. When you can give it use to people and just say, wait till it's dry, and then you can use it on your plants, and they're like, oh, okay. So a lot
Yeah.
of these sort of issues sometimes can be mitigated with education and just
Mm-hmm.
trying to at least help people be heard as well, because we understand not everybody is going to like these animals.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is going to be tolerant of them, unfortunately. But if we can sort of mitigate some of these problems through education about them, and also, and just that people are being heard, whether it's, supportive of the cows or, having some complaint or issue about them, at least we can try and speak to people so that they do feel like they have a voice.
Okay, well let's move on to the first photo because it's. I mean, I've always known you in the capacity of somebody who his heart is in the absolute best place, and you're always involved. And you mentioned it already within this conversation is your work within Animals Asia. So it's kind of square format. You're both wearing masks. So it must be within, in the time of the pandemic.
Mhm.
You're both standing with I guess it's Professor Paws shirt.
Yeah.
It's like a blue shirt with some white lettering on it.
Hmm.
It has the Animals Asia logo on it. You're wearing, it's a portrait of the both of you standing within, I guess, an office or something, because I can see behind you is like a cupboard with tea or something, boxes. You're standing inside. You're clearly smiling because your eyes have that twinkle, and you're with an associate, a friend, also wearing a mask. So we can't see your faces. We can see your eyes. She's also maybe not smiling as brightly as you, but she's holding a white dog. I don't know what kind of species. It's a small dog.
Hmm.
It's a terrier of some sort that's also wearing various accessories, like a little blue bow and a blue bandana that I guess is Professor Paws. And so over the image is the logo of Animals Asia. Like as a nerdy communications guy, like I'm like, that's a beautiful logo. And and the subline is kindness in action. So walk us through this photo, please.
Sure. So this is actually myself and my colleague, as you mentioned, Belle. She's a volunteer with Animals Asia, and we basically go around to schools on a daily, weekly, monthly basis as requested. And we do animal welfare education. And so this is where the little dog comes in. Her name is Fei Fei. And she is a registered animal therapy dog with Animals Asia. And so the
Hmm.
uniforms, the blue t-shirts and the blue bandana that the dog is wearing are the uniforms for the Professor Paws program. And so this program was started in 2004 by Animals Asia. And the intention was to go into schools and meet with students of all different ages, primarily primary school students at that point in time, since branched out from everything from kindergarten up to university level. And we tailor talks and seminars and workshops for students in regards to care for animals as a general topic. I think in the last sort of 5 years, there's been a lot more interest in animals, animal issues. We've got requests from schools on a daily basis to come in and do talks and explain more about our companion animals and how we can do better for them in our homes, things
Hmm.
that they need, their sentience, and what does that mean, their behavior, and how we can generally be the best pet parents that we can be to our animals at home. But also, more recently as well, I've noticed a big jump and increase in the interest in regards to the wild animals that we have in Hong Kong. We've got a fabulous amount of biodiversity here in Hong Kong, and to be able to go into schools and educate on that and some of the things that people might be seeing in their everyday lives where they live, and how we
Hmm.
should approach or think about the wildlife that we have here in Hong Kong as well, and how we should behave. I feel is a privilege to be able to do that and impart some knowledge to help people understand more about the things that we have. So, yeah, so that's sort of my day to day. Is I'm the
Hmm.
welfare education manager. So I go into the schools and then also tailor topics and discussions on animal issues for all the different levels of students that we might see. And I
Hmm.
think you probably are aware, as a lot of other people are, that the benefits of spending time with companion animals. In our case, we do only work with dogs at the moment because it's the species of animal that we've had the most experience with, and we feel that we have the most confidence in making sure that they're obviously enjoying the work as well, and assessing their behavior and making sure that they have a good time too when they do these visits. And so, we spend time with companion animals. It has massive psychological and physiological benefits to humans that we don't know about
Sure.
sometimes. Our blood pressure, our heart rate, our levels of stress reduce. The incidences of depression go down with companion animals. So there's a huge, vast amount of research on the benefits of spending time with a companion animal, even if you may not necessarily be able to have one yourself in your home. This is why
Hmm.
these dogs are so important, and they're wonderful owners volunteering their time to bring the dogs on these visits with us and impart some of their experiences as well. The animals that we work with, the dogs, a lot of them have been adopted as well, so from different organizations in Hong Kong, and so they have their own stories of adversity, sometimes which their guardians and owners love to share, kind
Right,
of
right.
bring that issue of animal welfare that some of these animals personally might have experienced into classrooms and helping people to understand more about animal care and welfare in Hong Kong as well. So
If anything, that kind of brings up the next image as well, just to just yeah, because these two images are quite connected, right? So in this one image, you're with your
yeah,
colleague Belle and Fei Fei,
yeah,
the dog, and then the next image is the photo is it's basically it's a group photo of one, two, three, four, five of you. I guess you're all wearing the t-shirt, the
yeah.
uniform, and then in the front, two of your colleagues are holding up these like I don't know even the breed, like toy poodles or something, and then kind of standing majestically, I guess, is your dog,
Pow
who's
Pow.
just what's his name?
His name is Pow Pow, and he's a wonderful volunteer dog again. And his lovely owners are the two people to my left in the picture.
Oh, he's not your
No,
dog.
unfortunately, my dog is not well behaved enough to join our visits. It was always my dream to be able to bring her to work, but yes, unfortunately, I don't think she would be quite suitable to do this role. So I work together with all these wonderful volunteers and their own dogs during my day to day, and
Oh,
see
okay.
my dog.
So this is obviously you're in a school situation because it's a lot of volunteers. Are we doing separate classes or what's all this all
I
about?
basically go to every visit that we have scheduled, and sometimes because it's a volunteer program, we actually send out the schedule of visit requests to all our volunteers. And we're obviously mindful that they have their own personal schedules as well. And so they get to pick and choose basically which visits they can attend. So some days we'll have one volunteer with one dog, other days we might have five volunteers and five of their dogs. So it just depends day to day.
Hmm.
So it's another sort of aspect of my that I like, that no 2 days are the same, because we're always in different venues with different age groups of students. Different volunteers join each visit, so it's a constant stream of different dogs and different volunteers and different students as well.
Sweet. Have you had any situations that, I mean, just generally speaking, I'm sure it must be a really positive experience for the kids who are just
Yeah.
like, well, first of all, it's a new sort of thing. I still find it kind of baffling that some kids will just never have even touched a dog. So, do you have an example that stands out in your head of just like, this one time we made it had such an impact. Like it was so visible on this child or this teacher or whoever this person's consciousness. Does one event really stand out?
Absolutely. So I've been in this role for about 8 years now. And in the initial sort of, I think it was my second year, we went to a school in a quite remote location of Hong Kong in a housing estate. And so we were invited by one of the schools that was on the housing estate. And in this area, being public housing, we know that there's not great exposure to dogs in particular, because of unfortunately in Hong Kong, many public housing estates won't allow you to keep dogs as pets or companions. So when we went into this school, it was a Chinese medium school, and so they wanted us to come in and practice English with their students and teach them about animals and bring all our wonderful dogs. And so the staff were really supportive to have this experience. And when we walked in the room, there was one child who was absolutely petrified. And I've seen this happen so often, and I am empathetic to that fear that a lot of young students unfortunately have. But during the hour, so we just requested that he stay in the room. He didn't have to be anywhere close to the dog. He could choose where he wanted to be that would make him feel comfortable. He had a teaching assistant who stayed together with him to talk him through what was happening. And eventually the tears sort of calmed down, and he sat cross-legged on the floor, and he was looking and watching and observing what was going on. And that was basically his other classmates who had all joined together in a circle, with our volunteer dogs in the middle and myself doing the education work, and running through some worksheets, and also having the students interact with the volunteer dogs. And they were doing things like learning how to greet a dog properly so that we can keep safe, and having that experience and learning the different rules that they could take home and away from the class to do that in their everyday lives. And then also brushing the dogs, so giving them a little groom to
Oh,
experience,
fun.
yeah. And then also as well feeding the dogs some treats, which obviously the owners bring as well, depending on their dog's dietary needs. But they get that opportunity to really have hands-on contact, and it's that hands-on contact that makes such a difference. Our visits are generally only for 1 hour, and so when we go in, there is sometimes fear, there's apprehension, there's hesitance, and then by the end of the hour, we've got, please, we don't want the dogs to go, we want them to
Yeah.
stay, we want to have more time with them. And so that physical interaction is really critical. And so for this young student who was sitting near the door and he was observing and watching, at about the 30-minute mark, he was seeing all his classmates do this. Whatever he'd been told in the past that had sort of created this fear, or his experience from the past, because some students have had negative experience with dogs.
Oh, for sure.
And so everything's on their terms, very gently, very slowly, at their pace, whenever they feel comfortable. And we just facilitate that. And so he actually came over with his teaching assistant, and he wanted to join the circle. So that was the first step, that he wanted to move a bit closer and observe a bit more
Nice.
closely. And then sort of 45 minutes, he was like, I said to him, I asked him, I said, oh, would you like to try and say hello to the dog? So just the basic first step, coming up and giving the dog a gentle pat and making that contact. And he was a bit apprehensive, but I held his hand. We came closer step by step. We had the baby steps, we were counting, and eventually he was standing next to the dog. And again, just a testament to the dogs as well themselves. They kind of pick up on these emotions as
Hmm.
well. And so the dog was super calm, just sitting there, knowing the routine. A lot of these dogs, when they have the bandanas on, they know that it's time for work, and they know sort of they need to keep calm. They've all been through behavior assessments to join the program to make sure that they're suitable. And so he was just sitting there, basically waiting to be patted. And this student, he reached his hand out, touched the dog very gently, very apprehensively at first on the back of his neck, and then ran his hand down his back. And you could just see the smile that lit up on this
Hmm.
boy's face was just like, there, that's the magic moment. That's what
Yeah.
we're trying to achieve with all these students that we meet, is to just give them that positive association with dogs, and also help them learn the benefits of interaction with not only companion animals, but looking and observing and taking care of wild animals that we might have in our area as well, and just build
Hmm.
empathy and that compassion towards life that's not necessarily human. And so anyway, he touched the dog, and he then proceeded to want to brush the dog. And the sort of last step, feeding the dog, is sort of the big one, because you obviously have contact with the dog's mouth. They obviously lick
Yeah.
your hand, which can be a quite an amusing moment when they have that experience. So
Hmm.
yeah, we worked our way up to the third step, to feeding the dog a treat, and he was just overjoyed. And it's a series of 4 lessons that we give to most schools, or we do one-off presentations, and this one was a series of 4 classes. So for the
Okay.
second class, he was like first in line to join the circle, hands up straight away, who wants to meet the dog? Me. And so just seeing from an hour the change that we can have in association with animals and contact with animals in this student's life. And at the end of the class, he received a certificate. He was really proud to go home and explain to his parents the experience
Nice.
that he had. So the sort of the teaching and the education goes past the students themselves and into their communities, through their friends, their families. And it's really, it's the best thing we can do, is to give people education and experiences that are positive, in the hope that they will continue that education to others around them.
Yeah, for
Spread the
sure.
love.
Great. It's great. That's that's really fantastic that that's happened. So in turn, let's go into who you are. So where did you grow up, in Hong Kong, or did you grow up outside of Hong
So
Kong?
I came to Hong Kong in 94, I think it was. So yeah, so 94 I arrived, and I'm originally from Ireland, and I moved with my family overseas to Bahrain in the Arabian Gulf in the
Okay.
80s, early 90s. We were there for 6 years. It's definitely very different now to what it was back then. I spent most of that 6 years between school and horse riding, which was a
Oh,
long-term
wow.
passion of mine, and something unfortunately I haven't been able to continue in Hong Kong. Yeah, so I've grown up all my life with pets in my family, contact with other animals, be it farm animals or wildlife, around the different areas that I've lived. It's been a
Hmm.
fascination of mine. I with National Geographic and Discovery Channel and all the different animal shows. I think I drove my parents to tears sometimes. It'd always be animals on the TV, and just a slight obsession, which still continues today.
Slight. A slight obsession.
So yeah, so basically we moved to Hong Kong, and then I was doing kindergarten teaching for a while, for 12 years, and it just kind of got to a point where I really wanted to continue teaching, and I loved working with kids, but I really wanted to sort of transition into something that I was passionate about, and teaching about something that I was passionate about, which was animals. And this opportunity came up with Animals Asia, and actually Jasmine Nuns, who I think you've also interviewed on your program, who is
Hmm.
doing Kambali and the forest bathing and nature talks. She was
Hmm.
actually in the position prior to me and said that, this is going to become available. We think you'd be perfect for the role. It's marrying all your loves of teaching, working with kids, but also the animal aspect, which had me jumping on the position. And I was very blessed. I got the role and have been doing that now for 8 years. And literally, Animals Asia to me was the pinnacle company. There's nothing after Animals Asia. That was always my sort of target organization that I would like to have worked with.
Right.
Yeah, 8 years ago.
So, in terms of your footprint across Hong Kong, like, I mean, I see you just I see you all the time in Sai Kung. You're out there, like this is like field work. But does that, the work you do for Animals Asia, does it put you all across Hong Kong?
It does. So, I mean, Animals Asia is my main full-time role, Monday to Friday, and often after after normal hours as well. It's basically government liaison, so going to different government meetings related to animal welfare issues, running our Dr. Dog and our Professor Paws programs, so taking me out to schools in different areas all across Hong Kong, mostly on a daily basis pre-COVID.
Hmm.
And then obviously with COVID now, it's mostly been online classes, but we're starting to slowly get physical classes going again, which is fantastic. And I'm super
Nice.
excited to have that going again. And then also as well, just doing the cow stuff in my supposed spare and free time.
Hmm.
And then also previously I was with Friends of Sai Kung, which is another great local organization doing lots of different work for the environment, the community, recycling
Right.
in our area. And I was doing the communications for them as well, sort of managing the Facebook page and website and a
So,
couple of other things as well. So I just over the years have tried to involve myself in things that help our community, help the animals in our community. And obviously, for me personally, just anything animal related is where
hmm
is at. And so I will do whatever I can within my means and within
hmm
time to help where needed and when needed. And that seemed to obviously at the moment be centered around the cows mainly. So that continues.
right. Somebody who's listening to this might be like, this is all about, being in Hong Kong. It's obviously very centered. It's very local, right? Like you're clearly a very on the ground, person to person, animal to animal. Like it's very, very much localized. So for somebody listening to you from, I don't know, from, let's just say, South Africa, or somebody listening to you from Canada or New Zealand, or like if we look at it as a more global mindset,
Yeah.
right? You're living in Bahrain, right? So how is what you're doing relevant to them? Like, how is that experience in terms of somebody listening to you from outside
Yeah.
of your local environment? What can they learn as, I don't say it's by example, but
Mhm.
what could inspire them to go like, well, in terms of where I live, I live in Mexico and I can do X because that does transfer. So what would you say transfers?
I think definitely across the globe, we have again, for me, the passion is animals. So, what can we do across the world to help different animals? Well, I think, there are animal issues globally. It's not just an issue in Asia, it's not just an issue in Hong Kong. Across the world, animals are suffering. They're going through different experiences in their daily lives that impact upon them, with both companion animals, farm animals, wild animals, and animals used for different industries. And, I think the biggest thing that I can encourage people around the world to do is to educate themselves about what is going on for these different types of animals in your community, in your country. Try and obviously form an opinion. Not everybody will have the same opinion about these different topics and issues. And if it's something that you care about, and we have to look at it. Obviously, COVID's been quite a highlight in some of these issues because how we treat other sentient beings has been an issue, obviously, with COVID. And also, as well, just the different industries and the choices that we make as humans. So, what I'm trying to say is that, animals, the environment, our homes, what we experience day to day, it's all interconnected. And
Hmm.
so, I think trying to learn more and then reflecting on our own personal lives and how we could potentially be making small positive changes to what we do and how we behave and how we act day to day can actually have a huge impact collectively on animals, on the environment, on the way that these things link together. So I think educating yourselves, learning about the issues that you have in your area, learning about the connections of these things to each other, and also just being mindful and making better choices. I think, we can give people tools and education and information, but it's up to the individual to consciously make an educated and informed decision about what they want to do in their own personal lives.
Hmm. So I'm going to use this as a kind of as a break to move on to the next image because there is a connection in my mind of what you're saying. So the next image is so where I live. If I leave my house to get to where you're sitting on that pier, that end, with that view of the amazing hillside, is literally 10 minutes.
Yep.
And so the image is that the sun is setting. So it's probably about like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
There's cloud. It's not, I mean, just a little bit of cloud cover. The light it's kind of filtered a little bit through the cloud cover. And then you've got some faraway hillsides that go up maybe 300 or 400 meters, which is about 1,200 feet. And then it's just like this sort of gentle slope, and it's all covered in Hong Kong's amazing green jungle, lush green forests. And then you're sitting in a bay, a small bay, and the image, whoever made the photograph, is of you sitting with your arm around a white and black dog, and you're kind of looking out onto the water because it's a sea.
Yeah.
And so there are a couple of things that I don't want to box you in, but only in the sense that you had mentioned the word sentience, and associating that with animals, and then here you have this companion animals, and here you are with your companion animal, and I can tell that you're wearing a mask. So this is a recent photograph. In terms of your idea of communicating to the world, the mission of kindness in action
Mm-hmm.
of Animals Asia, and your work and your life and who you are. So how would you discuss this image?
So just the image that you're describing is my dog, and her name is Shelby, and she was a rescue dog, and went through adversity in her life. And when she came to stay with me 6 years ago, it was a bit of a life changer. I wasn't expecting to have a dog at that time. I thought my life was a bit too busy, and I didn't have the time to give her the care that she needed and that I knew she needed. But we made adjustments. She unfortunately had puppies and lost them all. And after experiencing that moment with her when she lost her puppies and coming home and sitting on the floor and crying with her, and she was howling, it was a decision that just wasn't really a decision. She was staying. And so 6 years later, she's been my constant companion. We've been through a lot together. And I think, again, just observing her behavior and trying to think about life from her perspective, and the things that we do day to day, and what is she thinking, what is she enjoying, and so this photo was just a moment. We sadly lost her companion in September, and so again, that's been another moment in both our lives that's been traumatic, and she's been there and just a constant support, and I hope that I've done the same by her as well. So it was just, my friend actually was behind us, and she looked, we were just about to leave, and she said, "Oh my gosh, don't move, this is like the perfect photo." And it just does. I mean, it captures
Mm-hmm.
our relationship together, and I think again it just sort of epitomizes looking at animals as our companions, as our equals, perhaps. I know that's the way I see them. And in my day to day, I'm trying to do things in a way that has them as our partners. Animals generally as our partners, as our companions, as opposed to something to use, to abuse, to, dominate over, to, yeah, be in control or in charge of. So, I think that's just the way that I sort of look at our relationship, and I think we definitely have that bond. That's something special that is never going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just, for me, it's just a sort of instinctual way that I think about animals. And I hope through the education work that I do every day and trying to explain sentience and explain the fact that, animals feel different emotions just like we do. And they have one life that they want to live the same as we do, and trying to get people to make that connection that, as we all have. And it's this one thing that Animals Asia, we sort of ran a campaign on this, about one life, and it really is sort of something that I reflect on every day, that every living being on this planet has one life that we all want to live in some way, shape, or form, and have positive experiences, and be able to make choices, be able to avoid harm and hurt and pain and suffering. And so animals feel these things as well, and have exactly the same needs that we do as humans. So I guess trying to impart some of that way of thinking,
Mm.
the education work that I do, is something that I feel really passionate about. Again, it's not forcing people to follow a certain way, but it's just helping them to perhaps broaden their thinking about animals and about their needs and about their feelings, and putting yourselves in their shoes, in their experiences of a situation, and trying to help them understand things that way.
Right. Well, it's basically, it's the essence or the spirit of this podcast. If life really is a gift, if you only do have one life,
Yeah.
how do we make every second count, right? So in the one life that you have, you are using part of your experience and your expression is to raise consciousness, raise awareness, share with others that, not only is this a kind of a self-centered mission for all of us.
Yeah.
We're all kind of seeking the good life in a way, but how to share that with other animals, be it a bird or a dog or a cat,
Yeah.
horse, or the cows. So this notion of sentience, the sense of self, the sense of self-awareness and consciousness. And then when you do have a dog, I have 5 dogs, so clearly I'm on your side of the spectrum. But so one thing that we have to come to terms with, and I don't mean to bring up something that's going to hit you in the feels, but
Hmm.
is the fact that we outlive these companions that for many of us, we project so much of our emotional state onto them. And then dogs are kind of, I don't want to say they're bred for this, but they're exquisite reflectors of our emotional states. Like they really do read how we feel.
Absolutely.
I think when you have these animals around you, you become aware of the fact that, for example, a dog can smell changes in your body chemistry,
Yeah.
which for us is completely outside of our consciousness. But they can smell if you're scared or if you're excited or like. So, how do you come to terms with the fact that you are going to outlive this profoundly important companion?
Oh, definitely hitting me in the feels. So dogs, I think, I always say in the education classes that I do that the one fault that dogs have is they don't live as long as we do, and that's their only fault in my mind. And so, it's a heartbreaking moment to lose a dog. I think they take a part of your heart with you when they go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I think their memories live on with you forever. I know they do for me anyway. I've been, unfortunately, through this situation one too many times.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they. I think it is a fault. They should live forever.
Is it?
I think. Um,
Is it?
yeah, I
Is it a fault?
well, I think they come
I
into
think.
our lives to teach us. They teach
Well, yeah.
to be compassionate and to be caring and to have empathy for something other than ourselves, and they do it so wonderfully.
Maybe also to teach us or to make us aware. So, for example, when one of our dog, Sputnik died, that really profoundly impacted on Delian, my wife's Delian's feelings and life and appreciation, whatever you want to call it, all like her life, her experience, like Delian's consciousness. And in a way, maybe dogs are teachers in terms of understanding the trajectory of a life.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely, I would agree. Yeah, I mean, when my dog passed in September, it definitely made me reflect. It made me think about, life and death, and yeah, just the experiences that we'd had, the good times and the memories that we had, and as much as I was absolutely devastated, he's sort of been an instigator to continue on, and I've actually just recently qualified as a dog trainer.
Mm.
He was the instigator for that because when I got him 5 years ago, he was an absolute, as I called him, a pocket rocket, and I didn't know how to him. I didn't know how to handle his behavior, and it was because of him that I actually started to study sort of animal ethology and just learning more about why animals do what they do and about positive training to help obviously modify behaviors. And so, I feel like that legacy that he left, the lessons that he taught me, the patience that he definitely taught me, finding different ways and new approaches that were kind to him,
Yeah,
and that I understood how to do. And it built our bond phenomenally. Me spending
absolutely.
time working. So, animals take effort. They take time. They take, like, our care. They drain our bank accounts. They, take our time. They are
Sure.
needy. But the amount of love and unconditional love and zero judgment, they are there for you through everything, 110%. They know instinctively how to react. If you
Yeah.
want to go for a walk, they're there. They're ready to go. If you want to have a day in bed, they're there with you, So I think just, yeah, my dog who's passed, Buddy, he was a life changer, I think, and his sort of legacy lives on in the fact now that I'm hopefully able to impart some more knowledge to others about dogs and how we can obviously
Hmm.
help and be their companions and be the best guardians of them that we can be. I
Right.
to use the word owner because it kind of it's sort of feels like it's a dominance thing and not really
Yeah.
a equal relationship. So I always try and use the word guardians instead, because
Sure.
partners, because I think that's the way the relationship should be.
The next photo I'm going to go to, in a way for me is a best for last because first of all, it's like a nice photograph. It could have even been that same day by the pier because the hillsides are kind of the topography kind of fits, but. So it's a nice close up of you. No, actually, no. There's a different time because you're wearing a pile jacket. You're wearing a scarf. You're looking. It's a very close portrait. There's your face is on the left. You're just looking at the camera, and then you have. Is it the same dog as in the previous image?
Yeah, so this is Shelby again.
Okay. She looks a lot like my dog Kafka, and so for me, it's just like, aw, cute little sweetie. But the kind of expression on her face is more like, it's just like,
Is that me?
it's just like, come on, dude, really? And then, so what is the meta message, the underlying message that's here in this from this photograph that reinforces your mission and your commitment or just your because you've really shaped your life around this notion of kindness and action towards animals. So, what's the meta message of this image?
So we were actually in the country park again. We were on one of our favorite walks, which is into Pak Lap area, and then we walked back out to Pak Tam Chung, and this was sort of at the halfway mark. It was a lovely wintry morning, so it was quite cool, and yeah, we were actually out there checking on the cows as per usual. So sometimes she
Mm.
comes with me, and we go for these walks and meanders around different villages and to look and see if the cows, make sure they're okay, anyone injured or anyone in trouble. So anyway, that's what we were doing that morning, and yeah, she was quite tired. So at that point, I'd picked her up, and I just thought it was a nice moment to take.
Aw.
But the expression on her face says otherwise. So it's a photo I like to look at because again, you can just tell from a dog's face, expressively, and this photo, she's not too impressed with me picking her up. Number one, she's not a fan of being so I was trying to take a nice moment and memory of our lovely, wonderful wintry walk, and she was less
Mhm.
impressed and just wanted to keep walking. So again, it's just kind of a reminder to me, to really think about how we treat our companions and what we might find enjoyable or what they might want or what we might want to do, and our experiences may not necessarily be what our companions want. And so to
Right.
really sort of reflect and think, before we do something, is it kind, is it safe, is it something that they would enjoy? So I mean, there's lots of different examples in Hong Kong I could bring up, but do our dogs need to be dressed up? Do our dogs enjoy their experience and time at dog parks? Do we bring our dogs to different areas where we might want to go, but where they might feel fearful? So all these things that we could perhaps be thinking about better during our interactions with animals or our day to day, just taking a few moments to think, what is the impact of my actions on this animal? Is this going to be something positive for them or something negative? Or can I do something different or make a better choice that will cause less impact to this animal if it's going to be in a negative way?
Mm.
So again, just sort of reflecting on our human behaviors and the decisions, because that is the thing that we have control and power over. We have
Right.
control and power over how we act. And so taking it that step further and thinking how our behavior and actions impact upon others, animals included, is something, again, that I really try and impart during these education talks.
Hmm. So somebody who in their own area or in their, so for example, somebody who wants to learn more about, because I was looking at Animals Asia, and you have like Ricky Gervais, like images of Ricky Gervais on the webpage. You have like some really big names, so that's a very high profile, it seems, I don't know, from the outside, like a high profile organization.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody who wants to dive deeper into this idea of how do I understand like animal cognition and sentience, like where and how would you guide them?
I think definitely there are some fantastic resources out there. If you type any of those words into Google as a starting point, there will be lots of resources in regards to books, podcasts. Mark Beckhoff is someone who is fantastic in regards to his work on animal cognition and animal sentience, and he does a blog on different animal topics. I think it's in the Psychology Today online magazine. But he would be a good starting point to sort of broach some of these topics that can be quite in depth and quite feeling scientific, I suppose you would say, to begin with. But once you sort of get into things a bit more, it becomes fascinating. So obviously, Jane Goodall, some of the main key animal idols that I grew up with as well, watching some of the documentaries, some of the classics that are out there on, chimpanzees, for example, being our closest relatives and how
Hmm.
behaviors can be quite similar. As a starting point for your sort of average person who's not doing animal work day to day and not involved in anything really too much with animals. Psychology as well has lots of different resources on animal cognition and animal behavior as well. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, there's lots of different resources out there. You can also check out sort of SPCA in Hong Kong, and also I think your previous guest Kim McCoy as well. There's some different interest talks and topics. I think Cafe 8 with Maren Pierce is another one as well. They often hold different talks on the environment and different topics to do with local to Hong Kong. And so there's lots of opportunities out there if you just sort of look a little bit for them. Occasionally, but I think just basically reading, research, searching for these things online, different topics that, it's a huge, vast area, animal behavior and animal cognition. So if there's something specific that you have interest in, there's a lot of resources that you can find online.
And so somebody who's just like, okay, so I'll put the links to that you've provided in the description and everything, but you have a moment right now. Where do you think you would like people to go to just learn more, or people go to change their behavior to just make the world a better place? Like, how would you guide them?
I would say, as a starting point, you could go onto Animals Asia's website, and our wonderful founder and CEO, Jill Robinson, has a blog on there that's been running for quite a number of years. And so every week she will discuss a different topic to do with animals or our work. And it covers quite a lot of things such as sentience, cognition, behavior. And so that would be a good starting point if I'm going to do a plug for our organization.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's animalsasia.org, yeah?
That's right. And it's just Jill's blog, which is on the front main page of our website. And if you go in there, it's lots of, talks from our founder and CEO, the wonderful Jill Robinson. So, that would be a good starting point. And then what else? I think Facebook has lots of different interest groups as well on different animal cognition and sites. So most of my Facebook feed tends to be animal stuff all day, every day. So just joining those different groups. There is scientific as well, academically published papers as well on different animal things. I think, again, using Google to search for those different topics brings up a lot of information. So
Right.
one specific website or link that I would give, because there are so many.
Sure.
Depends on what aspect of animal sentience or animal behavior or cognition that you have interest in, because it's a huge field in itself.
Karina, thank you so much. It's amazing. This time tends to just go. When I asked you to join me, you said, "Oh, I'd love to today, but actually, unfortunately, a cow just passed away, so we have to go deal with what happened." And the last time I saw you was on the road, and you were shepherding cars around what looked like a newborn calf had just started walking on the road. It's called Buffalo Watch, but are they truly buffalo, or what's the species?
One final funny story. So when we started Buffalo Watch in 2009, we were a bit naive. We were a bit undereducated in everything cow. And so we called the group Sai Kung Buffalo Watch, but we actually don't have any buffalo in Sai Kung. So it's a bit of an amusing point now. We were going to change it to Sai Kung Bovine Watch. Then we just decided to leave it, and it's kind of a bit of a running joke now that it's Sai Kung Buffalo Watch with no buffaloes in Sai Kung. So they're actually feral cattle in Sai Kung. Anybody visiting the area, we encourage people to enjoy their presence, to use cameras, to take moments and memories of their meeting of these wonderful animals. But we do ask that people give them a respectful distance. They are animals that, although they're classed in Hong Kong by law still as livestock, the generations that we have around Hong Kong now, they are born wild, they are living a wild lifestyle, and so it really is not advisable to get close to them, because they again have feelings just like we do, and they might not appreciate that, and so you do have to keep safe, but also give them respect. They deserve respect. They deserve some distance. They shouldn't be chased after. We've had people trying to ride them in the past, sorts of human behaviors that really don't need to be done, and make the cows very comfortable and puts everybody, cow included, in a dangerous situation. And so just respect space, quietness, calmness, enjoy their presence, but don't try to interact with them. And also as well in rural areas, not just Sai Kung, but also on Lantau, also in Shung Shui, Kam Tin, Yuen Long, those areas also have cattle and buffalo as well. please slow down. It's not just these animals that sometimes are on the roads, but we also have porcupine, we have wild boar, we have monkeys, we have snakes, we've got all sorts of creatures that, unfortunately, because we've built roads through their areas, they have to traverse these
Hmm.
areas to get from A to B. And so the best thing that we can do is to try and obviously be mindful of the speed limits in Hong Kong. It's 50 unless otherwise stated. So anything
Hmm.
above that, especially at dawn and dusk when most of these animals are going to be moving around, please just drive with awareness, drive as slow as you can. Obviously, accidents do happen, but if you do hit something, unfortunately, please don't just leave it by the roadside, dying
Sure.
slowly and alone. There are obviously vets that will come to try and help if possible. If they can't, they will end the animal's suffering and misery. And so, really, please do report to the police, would be the first point of call. If it's obviously local to Sai Kung, I'm happy to help where I can and get those people to the animal as fast as possible. But just report something. If something does happen, don't just leave it. Please do seek help for it. And SPCA are another point of call as well.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I am a big fan and I really appreciate how much time and effort you personally do. Like, you are clearly one of the good people. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shoot